Hello and welcome to Serial at Midnight, the official YouTube channel of serialatmidnight.com. My name is Heath, and I'm glad you're here because this is the debut, the inaugural edition of the Icons of Horror series for Serial at Midnight. Now, really what this is just an excuse for me to talk about some of the things about horror, the subgenres within horror that I love the most, the things that I connect with the most. I've got 3, maybe 4 of them planned for the rest of the month of October, where I'll be just talking you through some of the things that I love about some of these movies. It's not meant to be an education. It's not meant to be like a fact-finding video series or anything like that. It's really just, I like, for instance, today is the slashers video, and I love slashers. Slashers are my favorite type of horror. I'm not really sure why. I continue to try to figure it out. I think that part of it is because when I grew up in the 80s, that was the flavor du jour of video store, like horror, the horror genre. Like slashers were so easy to produce. You could go into the woods, few people. You don't need a special effects budget. You just have somebody chase people around and then kill them on camera, and not really. But it was simple. And because of that, slashers are kind of like the redheaded stepchild of horror films. They have probably the least respect of all of the genres, but subgenres, whatever. But we have to tip our hats to the granddaddy of them all, and that is the Halloween franchise. Halloween really set the mold for the slasher films that would be the entirety of like the 1980s. Like everybody was chasing the formula that Halloween established. Young kids doing things that they're not supposed to do and then getting bumped off in creative ways by a flashy, stylish, very iconic looking killer. Now we do have to tip our hats to Psycho and to, like French movies before that. You could go like all the way back with some of this stuff, but I think that Psycho is obviously the granddaddy, the real granddaddy, the great granddaddy of slasher movies. A guy with a knife killing people. But for the kind of horror that I'm talking about, it really did start with Halloween. And so I've bought these movies so many times. I should also say that these Icons of Horror series will be drawing from my collection. So if I don't have it, I'm not going to be talking about it. I like to show you what I'm talking about. If I can show you something without having to put a screen capture up or something, I'd much rather do that. So I have bought these movies so many times, but I think I've bought them maybe for the last time because I did pick up the 15-disc limited edition Halloween boxed set, the complete, I don't even know what this thing's called, the collector. It's called the Complete Collection 15-disc Deluxe Edition, and this really probably is the be-all end-all for the Halloween series. It's all of the movies with alternate cuts of the movies that have alternate cuts with bonus discs. It's got 5 extra discs that the standard version of this does not have. Alternate versions of the first movie, of the second movie, of The Curse of Michael Myers. It's exhaustive. It really is. And I don't want to get too bogged down into these Halloween movies because they're obviously a very mixed bag. But I will say that Halloween, obviously, I love these movies so much. Some more than others. I love the first one. The first one is, I do believe, a perfect movie. I do not think that there's anything in that movie that could be improved upon. John Carpenter is amazing. He's probably my favorite director, if not my favorite, at least the top 3. But the first Halloween movie is just absolutely stunning. I do try to watch it every year. Halloween 2, I like. That's where we start to get into some of these other, it's obviously diminished returns. We're going back to the well. Halloween 3, I love as a thought experiment. If you separate Halloween 3 from the Halloween franchise, it's so fun. Like, I love Halloween. My wife loves Halloween 3. Like, we are big fans of Halloween 3. And I appreciate the idea behind it because they wanted to... They realized that, like, well, we can't just keep having Michael Myers come back. We need to have something... Let's make it an anthology series where we can have different things in each movie. That's very admirable. But people were like, no, I want the guy in the Captain Kirk mask. Because, like, the mask is a William Shatner Captain Kirk mask, spray-painted white. I don't know if it's spray paint. I think it's spray paint. Anyway, but it failed. But if you go back and watch this movie and separate it from what we know about Michael Myers is in all these other movies. So as a standalone, I do really love Halloween 3. My wife has a Silver Shamrock shirt that she loves to wear, and I love that my wife loves Silver Shamrock. So that is, I'm going to put these aside over here. That is, while we're talking about it, 4 and 5, very good. Curse of Michael Myers, I have yet to watch the alternate producer's cut. I know, I need to. But I don't think it's going to change it into like, take it from being like to a yeah. I think it's, it's limited returns. I will watch it, but I think that movie was maybe flawed from conception. That's just my opinion. I like what they tried to do with Halloween H2O. I even like, guys, I like Halloween Resurrection. Here's a true story. Halloween Resurrection was the first Halloween movie that I saw. Because if you've seen the channel, if you followed my videos, you know that I grew up in a very strict religious household, and that sort of thing just wasn't allowed. So I wasn't watching Halloween at friends' houses. I wasn't watching them on cable or anything like that. So it was when I was like grown and out of the house and like able to do my own thing that I finally caught up with the Halloween movies, and that was the one that was new at the time. And so I watched it and I was like, man, this is amazing. And then of course you work your way back, but I will always have a soft spot for Halloween Resurrection. It's not good. I don't argue that it's good, but it has I have a sentimental attachment to it. The Rob Zombie movies, I don't really like. I'm just going to leave it there. I do not like those movies. I think that the standard opinion from a lot of people is that they're like, why? I don't understand why we continue to remake. If you're going to remake a horror movie, remake one that wasn't very good in the first place and could be improved upon. Maybe remake Dark Knight of the Scarecrow or something like that. But don't remake an absolute classic that still holds up and that people still watch year after year. Same goes for, they remake classic horror movies. The Fog remake, like John Carpenter's movies, especially from that period, are pretty much perfect. Like they don't need to be updated. The synthesizer score, all that stuff is still so cool. So I don't know why we chase some of these things. I say we. I don't know why Hollywood chases some of these things. I know that it's name recognition, and I know that it is maybe 17-year-olds aren't going to seek out horror movies from the 70s or the 80s, but they should. And if the ones with good taste do, I believe. So obviously, if we're going to talk about Halloween, we have to move on from there to the Friday the 13th series, because the first Friday the 13th movie was very much trying to capitalize on everything that made Halloween what it was. Like how the whole idea behind Friday the 13th was like, let's make our own Halloween movie. But I will say I love the Friday the 13th movie, and whereas I have a ton of respect for the Halloween, especially the first Halloween movie, Jason Voorhees is my favorite horror icon. He's my favorite slasher. He's my favorite. I love the Friday the 13th movies. Love them. And I've bought these so many times. So this is the most recent version. This is the first it's the first 8 movies. There was a collector's 10 box set that did come out. I think it was about $100 or something. I did not buy that because as I was, I stay on top of these things, and there were so many reports of scratched discs. People, because of the way they store these things in these little sleeves, like the Fraggle Rock set that we opened on camera. There were so many reports of people going through multiple sets in the store trying to find ones that did not have scratched Blu-rays. So I just stayed away from it. I do have, because I've bought these movies so many times, I do have many alternate versions. The first time I bought these movies was this set, the Crystal Lake to Manhattan set. And that was how I watched these movies for years. And then they started putting them out on Blu-ray, so I have the single edition Blu-rays of most of these. Well, there's these, right? There's Jason Goes to Hell, and then there's Jason X, Jason 10. Great movies. These were included in that 10 set that I talked about. These are from another company, so they couldn't be included with the Paramount set. But this is Paramount, right? Yes, it's Paramount. And these are New Line. So they're different companies. I understand all that, but I do not know why this company has sat on these and not put them out on Blu-ray. Because do you know how many people would snatch these up if they put these out on Blu-ray? But I do have my DVDs. It's worth noting that Jason Goes to Hell, this has the unrated version, which literally everyone, agrees is the superior version of this movie. So if I want to watch it, when I do watch it, I have the DVDs, and that's fine. So, but I have bought these movies so many times, and I want to say that like Halloween, I've probably bought them for the last time, but I don't know that I could say that, because if they reissued this set in another partnership deal and had the other two movies on it, or like the remake, there is a remake. I don't know if I pulled that to talk to you guys about. I did. There's a remake. It's not good. I don't think it's worth watching, really. I bought it. I have it because I am a collector. I love Jason, and you have to have the thing with Jason in it if you're gonna, if you're gonna be a Friday the 13th fan. You got to have the Friday the 13th movies, but it's not a good movie. Also, not a good movie is let me move some of this stuff out of the way. Also, not a good movie is Freddy versus Jason. Now, this is interesting because we seem to live in a society where things like Freddy versus Jason come out in the theater. I saw this in the theater, and we're like, well, that was not good. That was not good at all. And then everybody kind of agrees, like, that wasn't good. That was not what I wanted from a Freddy versus Jason movie. And then time passes, 5 years, 10 years passes, and then we go like, that Freddy vs. Jason movie, I didn't like it when it came out, but it was pretty good. We have this very revisionist history, which is how Scream Factory makes all this money on their releases, because they put out crap movies most of the time. All these collector's editions of terrible movies at $30 and $40 a pop. Those movies are not good most of the time, but we have this revisionist history where we're like, no, but it was just an undiscovered gem. Most of the time not. Most of the time they're pretty bad. And so Freddy vs. Jason is a movie that I feel like I'm seeing the conversation turn to, I don't know, it's better than you remember. It's actually not. It's not better than you remember. It's not a good movie. Again, I own it because I love both Freddy and Jason, and you can't have a Jason, Friday the 13th collection and not have this movie, because it's a piece of the canon. And as a piece of the canon, we have to recognize it. But it's not a good movie. Let's just own it. Let's be like, yeah, I like it because it's got characters that I care about. I care about Jason. I care about Freddy. I like to watch them. Should have been a better movie. We can say that. And so because of that, we'll transition from Freddy vs. Jason to the Nightmare on Elm Street series. I do kind of wish that I still had the old VHS set. At one point in time, I had the VHS, not VHS, DVD set. It was the DVD set that had the spines all lined up, and they created like a mural of Freddy. His back was turned, I believe. I had that at one point, and I guess I sold it and upgraded to the Blu-ray version. But they just looked so good. I honestly couldn't tell you if there was anything that was a special feature on those that didn't get transferred to this Blu-ray. But this is, for all intents and purposes, this is everything Freddy. Obviously not the Nightmare on Elm Street series, the TV series, but it would be awesome to have that on DVD. While my favorite slasher is Jason Voorhees, my wife loves Freddy, and I think we can call Freddy a slasher because he does come into your dreams and slash you. He does have a memorable weapon. He does have an iconic presentation. These are characters that were made for lunchboxes. Now, some of you know I write for a website, fthismovie.com, and there was a conversation that was happening on one of the podcasts years ago, and it was kind of hit upon that these monsters, Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers, we'll throw in some more that will be coming soon, are kind of the second coming of the Universal monsters. Like in the 30s and the 40s and into the 50s, you had all these monster kids who grew up with the Wolfman and Dracula, the Bela Lugosi Dracula, and the Boris Karloff Frankenstein, the Lon Chaney Wolfman Jr. Not Wolfman Jr. Wolfman Jr. would be a cool cartoon, though. But those were like the monster icons for like maybe a couple of generations, and then my generation, when we grew up, though I was not allowed to watch the movies, the iconic nature of Freddy and Jason was huge. There really is something to be said that they were a new generation's horror icons, just like them. You could have put them on lunchboxes, you could have put them on backpacks, and I think now they do. It's too bad it's like 30 years late for me, but they are huge. They're a new generation's monster icons. I don't know what the generation now, what their monster icons would be. Maybe Annabelle. I don't know. Like, what are the monster icons now for the current generation? What are the iconic horror films from now? That's an interesting conversation. If you have thoughts about it, weigh in on the comments below. I should also mention that I do also have these documentaries, these exhaustive documentaries. Never Sleep Again, The Elm Street Legacy. This is 238 minutes long, so we're looking at about 4 hours. And it's a huge, like a very in-depth look at the entire Nightmare on Elm Street series. I highly recommend that. I also have the Crystal Lake Memories. There's a book of this as well. I do not have the book, but I would like to get the book. And it's exactly the same thing. It's just a deep dive into the Friday the 13th series with some of the cast members who are involved in it. Where do we want to go from here? Let's go to Chucky, or as some people pronounce it, Chucky. So I do have all of them. We also have Cult of Chucky. Does this work on standard definition? Well, it's not standard. Does this work? Can you tell that he's moving? I don't know. So these, again, movies I did not come to until honestly probably 10 years ago. Like, I was probably close to 30 before I saw any of the Child's. Actually, that's not even true. It was probably 3 or 4 years ago. It was not long ago that I actually got to see the Child's Play series, and I think it was via this box set, which came out in 2013. So there you go. Chucky has become a huge hit with me. Like, I really love the character of Chucky. I love Brad Dourif. You cannot separate Chucky from Brad Dourif. I know that they're, as I found out in a live stream number 2, that they're remaking Child's Play, which seems like a terrible idea to me, because Child's Play is it seems like they're splitting the line. So they're going to continue making like this version in like maybe TV movie form or something. I don't even know. I'm talking about facts that I'm not sure about, but I do know they're remaking Child's Play, and I don't think it's going to be with Brad Dourif. And that just seems very sad to me, because Chucky is Brad Dourif. Like, they're the same. Like, Brad Dourif is obviously playing a character, but I don't know how you separate that character from the guy that brought life to him. Even though it's just the voice, that voice is such a part of it. So I'm very interested. I'm just going to say I'm skeptical, but I'm very interested to see how they're going to pull that off and if that's going to be worth anybody's time. But I do have a ton of respect for these movies. This is another one of those, let's just call them the lunchbox killers, because this is another icon that you stick on a lunchbox. It is very iconic. Icons of horror, that's what I'm talking about. Also an icon, Leprechaun. I have the complete Leprechaun series. There are, 7 movies? I think there's 6 original movies from the Warwick Davis, Willow was Leprechaun. Also Wicket the Ewok, Warwick Davis, who I've met and is a lovely guy, absolutely lovely. Actually, I think I've met him twice. Anyway, then they remade it, and this has the remake on it as well. And I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't watched the remake because I will at some point, but as of right now, I'm just not that interested. But we have to talk about the Leprechaun, because though they're not good, they are camp classics, and I think that that's all they ever intended to be is camp classics. So we'll move on from that. I've got to go back, because there is something that I did not talk about. We were talking about slashers. We were talking about iconic killers. We did not talk about... Ooh, that's blown out. We did not talk about Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I have the first 2, and I know that they've recently put out more of them on Blu-ray, but I only have the first 2. And you do not get more iconic than Leatherface when it comes to... You guys, the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre, directed by Tobe Hooper, is a masterpiece. It's another one of those movies that I think is a perfect horror movie. So scary, so intense. There is really... And I understand why Tobe Hooper did not want to repeat himself with the sequel. This has like a slipcase that came with it. So this is a secondary cover art, like an insert. And that's kind of cool. So the original art, also very blown out, but it's generic. And I thought that this was so much cooler. But I understand why Tobe Hooper did not want to repeat himself. Because when you've accomplished something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you don't want to go back to the well. You don't want to just do the same thing over again. I think a lot of directors would have and do. And I admire Tobe Hooper for wanting to take the series into other directions. But we have to shout out the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then I'm going to end on these because I think that this is the last of my life, of my generation so far. This is the last notable icon in the horror series, the horror genre, slashers specifically, that really made an impact. And I'm talking about Scream, Ghostface. These movies, I cannot overstate what these movies did for horror in the 90s. It was amazing. It brought the genre back to life. It brought, like, horror. I do not think horror was in a great place by the time that the mid-90s rolled around. And this, by making it kind of funny and by talking about what we expect from horror movies, they were able to do something really special that still resonates, still scary, still fun, still funny. So I have all 4 of these movies. There's a TV series too, right? I haven't seen the TV series, but for the movies, what Wes Craven managed to do with these movies is really, we cannot say enough about Wes Craven. The guy from The Nightmare on Elm Street, the famous horror director, Wes Craven, really reinvigorated horror for a whole new audience with the Scream movies. So that is my look at slashers, and basically my favorite slashers. That's what that is. Those are the ones that I love, that I try to dip in and visit every October. And, you know, not just October. We watch those movies in this house like throughout the year. But that's what I think. Is there something that I didn't talk about that you want to talk about, that you know about, that you love, that you feel like needs to be discussed? What are your favorite horror movies? I'm not going to tell you what I have planned coming up later for the other chapters of this series, but I would love to hear your suggestions. So guys, I do want to thank you for watching this video. This is a longer one, but hopefully you stuck through it to the end and you had a good time. Thank you so much for checking out the video. I do appreciate you so much, and I will catch you later.